The Joyful Friar podcast is made possible by the generous support of our friends. To support the podcast, please visit nathan-castle.com and donate today. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Joyful Friar podcast. I'm Father Nathan Castle, your host, out of uniform and out of my normal surroundings because I am visiting my sister and brother-in-law in the Azores. It's not a Chamber of Commerce day. It's the first one since I've been here that's overcast and just a little bit of kind of spitting rain. But we're right on the ocean, and you can see a little bit of water out the behind me there, I think. And today I have an old friend that I haven't been in touch with in months. We've let too much time pass, but Kim is going to introduce herself in a minute, Kimberly Sharp. This is the third part in a trilogy that is about Craig, who showed up to us in a dream, and all he showed me was an angry man in a wheelchair. That's all. No drama, no detail, just a guy mad at the world and mad at his wheelchair, and that was all I got. Uh, Kim and I think Phil was the prayer
Mhm,
partner in that one several years ago now. And
mhm.
Phil has been curating stories for me to share on the podcast and said, I think that Charlie, I mean, the Craig in the wheelchair would be a really good story to tell. So we went back into prayer just about a month ago and contacted them. My dad came through, and so did a man in a wheelchair. The only person I knew who lived in a wheelchair was Charlie the watchmaker, who lived a few blocks away from us, had a little hut behind the liquor store where he repaired watches for his livelihood. So you're going to be hearing part three. So we've told the story in episode one. Last week, the theme was compassionate response to that story. And today we're doing spiritual practice related to that story. I've asked him to kind of take it and run with it and do most of the talking on this episode. So we've done a little bit of prep for you and hope that you benefit and enjoy what we're going to do here. So, Kim, please introduce yourself and take it and run with it.
Sure thing. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Father Nathan. I know we've already sent our hellos, but I'm happy to be here. So I'm Kim Sharp. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I work out of San Pedro, California. I also work with people all over the state, online, virtually. And in my practice, I support people in moving through religious trauma and also through integration of spiritual experiences, including near-death experiences, mystical experiences, and whatnot. I also help people with anxiety and looking at people's moods and how moods can affect their quality of life and their joy in life. So that probably applies to what we're going to be talking about today in terms of helping the work that we did with Craig and the stuff that we learned about Craig after he had transitioned or moved on
Yeah,
to the next level. Yeah.
and I neglected to give a little bit of background that would help people that didn't hear the previous two episodes. Craig, as it turned out, was somewhere, I think, in his mid 20s, maybe a little bit younger than that. He thought of himself as good looking and outdoorsy, and um, he loved his motorcycle, but he missed a curve on his motorcycle, was thrown from it, and subsequently was paralyzed from the waist down. Never
Mhm.
walked again. Um, he was really angry. He told us that, he would now he would not only never walk, he'd never have sex, he wouldn't marry, he wouldn't have kids. Um, and it really disgusted him that he said I had to sit in my own filth. He had to wait for somebody to come and change a diaper or a catheter and all that, and that was for a lifetime. And so he was really an angry dude, and he not without reason, but that's some of the background. But he did survive his death, as we all do, and he told us something of what his guardian angel and his other helpers, how they worked with him in the afterlife, because he said you might think that you just, after being in a wheelchair for years, you would just bound out of it and and go running. And he said, but it wasn't that way for me. I had developed some habits of thought and what they call temperament that made that slower than you might have thought. So with that, Kimberly, please take it from there.
Yeah. So he had this temperament and he chose to look at the wheelchair as a jail cell. He hated the thing. He said he wished it to hell.
Yeah, go to
And
hell, wheelchair. Yeah.
go to hell. So he had a choice in this matter. He could look at it as a way to get around, or he could look at it as a jail cell. And he chose to look at it as the latter, which affected his mood, how he moved through his life, his temperament. And when he died, he kind of took that with him.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was really interesting when you talked about in the last episode how the people were with him on the other side. They were healers and they helped him see kind of how stupid, I think it was the word that he used, stupid it was
He said, I hate
to,
stupid people. And he said to Phil, I can't stand it when people are stupid. And Phil said, oh, I'll keep that in mind. And he said, well, so far you haven't said anything stupid, but try to not say anything stupid.
probably good I wasn't on that call because I say stupid things sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, yeah. It was interesting because they used that point of view of him. How do they put it sometimes? You don't suffer fools is another way people put it. He didn't suffer fools very well. The help on the other side helped him see how ridiculous it was to resist their help.
Do you really want to have the attitude of a cripple? That's what his team members put to him. You are as mobile as anybody else in the afterlife, but you have the attitude of a cripple. Do you want to continue to be that way?
Yeah. Do you want to stay handicapped? Because you can if you want. You can if you want. But we're trying to help you out of that frame of mind.
Yeah,
And they told him, I said, there's nothing holding you back except your temperament.
right. And you
And
counsel people for a living, and so that shouldn't be unfamiliar to you.
oh, yes. Yeah. 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 It really becomes a balance of how can I validate the suffering they might be experiencing and not have them stay there? How can I validate the unhappy emotions, the unpleasant emotions, and help them get to like a better place in terms of what's going on up here and what's going on in their body?
Like, is there a kind of upper limit on how many counseling appointments you do with the same client?
I probably operate a little bit differently than you because sometimes there are things like traumas and different experiences that people have had that get in the way of changing that mindset.
Hmm.
And so I sort of see it as a almost like a frame by frame kind of process. There is for sure an upper limit, but it takes some time for me to get there. Yeah, what are your thoughts? I remember you said last time that you're not there to commiserate with people. And
Yeah,
so
that's,
yeah.
and it's partly because earlier in my career, I'm 70 years old now, but earlier in my career, um, I thought my way of helping people who came to me for counsel was to sit and listen and to be with them in their suffering. But then it
Mhm.
began to, sometimes I began to be impatient with them because they're telling me the same thing this week than they did the last time we met. And
Mhm.
then I was beginning to think, I don't think this is really my gift. I don't, if you want commiseration, if you want to, if you don't think you can move from misery, but you want somebody to hear your misery, you're probably talking to the wrong guy. That doesn't
Mhm.
have to necessarily include a judgment that, you ought to get over it yourself or whatever. But I began to feel inauthentic that I believe my role was more, and I sometimes call myself a tow truck driver. I'll help you get out of the ditch, but I won't follow you down the road. It, but I can be a change agent. At least, and I think I admire that when I hear the afterlife people say stuff like, well, do you really want to have the attitude of a cripple? Because you can if you want. Uh, But
Mhm.
he said I was going through a low, slow slog, but then they began to push me some, and his guardian was able to say, "I knew you before your accident. Remember, you weren't always this way. Sometimes you were
Mhm.
daring and adventurous and stuff. You could do new things and try new things, and you still could because you still have that in you."
Like, how do we help the person actually exercise self-compassion
Yes.
to see, God, I mean, it would be quite awful to, at one point you're athletic, you can do a lot of things, you take pride in your athleticism, and then like that overnight, it just changes. And
Yes.
so if that had happened to someone that you care for very much, that you have concern for, what would you do with them? Well, you'd probably have a lot of concern for them and have compassion for them. And so, how can you have the same compassion for yourself? Not with the intention of staying in a self pity place, like a victim place, but how can you have compassion for the real suffering that actually happened so that you can move on and think about things in a different way? Carl Rogers, he had this great quote. He said, the funny thing, and I'm probably butchering it, he said, the funny thing is when I fully accept myself, then I can change. And I found this to be true. You can't bully yourself. Like, I've got to change. Like, that might work for a minute or two or a day or two,
Hmm.
but you have to be able to have real deep compassion for yourself in order to make the shift. And maybe you have compassion, maybe it grows. Doesn't have to happen overnight. But with more compassion that you can have, then it's possible to go, well, how have I kind of messed up the situation? Yeah.
Because you're an active, believing Christian woman,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this particular episode has to do with spiritual practice. Do you have a
Yeah.
yours is a secular practice, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there is sort of a spiritual bent to it, but it's basically secular, yeah. I'm licensed by the state.
So to this point about how to have both self-compassion for the circumstance that you're in, but not being mired in it or limited by your past, and trying to have some sort of different future given what you have to work with, what kind of spiritual practice would you bring to the party?
There's a couple I can think of. One of them is what we call a self-compassion break. This is something that Krista Neff and Christopher Germer, I think they developed. And it's basically a process where you think to yourself, okay, I'm suffering right now. And to think about all the other people who might be suffering in the same way all over the planet,
Mhm.
that can decrease your own sense of loneliness and isolation, like you're the only one suffering.
Yes.
And then to pair it with some sort of tactile thing. So whether it be kind of putting your hand on your cheek or putting your hand here, or even just having your arms rest anywhere they might rest with the intention of being kind to yourself and giving yourself some sort of encouragement. Like, we're going to move through this.
Using plural language in self-talk.
Yeah. When people show up to therapy, there is a part of them that is on the side of life and is on the side of change. Otherwise, they would not be in that chair.
Yes.
It's about calling forth that essence and saying we're going to get through this. Yeah. The other thing is in terms of spiritual practice is if Craig was a client of mine, it's like how can you be aware that your legs are not working and feel into the parts of yourself that do work?
Hmm. Yeah.
Acknowledging, yeah, this sucks. My legs don't work. And I've got hands that work. I have a heart that works. I have lungs that work. I have organs that are keeping me alive. How can I acknowledge everything else? And that might mean doing a body scan meditation or just simply sitting in a chair and feeling into your hands. Like noticing, bringing your attention to your hands, bringing your attention to your lungs, to your heart, one breath at a time.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move a little bit ahead to Charlie, the watch repair guy. if you didn't follow the previous two episodes, it's really delightful. It was part of my childhood story was that there about 5 blocks from our house, behind a liquor store, there was this little hut with a ramp and a sign outside of it that says Charlie's Watch Repair. And it was a guy who had had an accident and who was confined to a wheelchair, but who learned after his accident or whatever befell him, he learned how to do watch repair. And it was the very thing you're talking about. He looked around and saw that his hands worked, his
Hmm.
eyes worked, his mind worked, and there were
Hmm.
people who were willing to teach him an occupational skill that he could do from a wheelchair.
Hmm.
And he showed up. My dad and I, and sometimes my little brother, wasn't often, but once in a while, my dad would say, "Let's go visit Charlie," and he would usually do it around cocktail time. You know,
Hmm.
5 o'clock somewhere. We would go visit Charlie at 5 o'clock. And
Uh-huh.
we would come unannounced, or maybe he would phone ahead, but pretty much spur of the moment. And we were little kids. I'm thinking of me being about 8, and my little brother being 6, something like that. Um, and he would just say, "Let's go," and we'd go. We had no part there other than to hang around while the two adults had a drink and talked. And but my dad wanted us to see that it was good to be with people who were isolated much of the time. Charlie came for Craig. Craig later said about Charlie what you just said. He did pay attention to what still worked, and I never really did that. But this guy had pretty much the same life circumstance of being paralyzed, but he got busy and he said, I let my world become so small because I couldn't go anywhere and do anything. But Charlie's world was small too, but then he decided to go in a world even smaller than his that was tiny workings of a clock. He could work in the tiny space and make the world a better place because he could make someone's clock work again.
Hmm.
He had a positive thing to do to contribute to the common good.
Yeah. So it's a reminder that sometimes when we are, and this may sound harsh to people, but when we are in a really depressed mood, we are very, very inwardly focused. And we
Yeah.
tend to focus on ourselves and our own misery. And this is going to sound like a judgment, but it's all self-centered.
Well, that doesn't have to be about depression. It can be about a toothache. You get a
Hmm.
toothache, and what do you think about?
Your tooth.
And it's hard to do anything except think about that toothache until you solve the problem. And of course, folks who were paralyzed, they didn't really have the option of just getting up and walking. They had to figure out how do I make the most of what I've got from what remains.
Well, and it was just kind of beautiful how Charlie, he made a choice. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna do what I can to serve humanity in the way that I can," which
I think he said, I decided I was going to be a happy person, but I had to make up my mind to do it.
I mean, can it be that easy? Maybe it can.
And maybe not. But that might have been a decision he had to repeat many times over, but he had to at
Mm.
least start and say, I'm going to be a happy person. I did that in my early 20s because I was unhappy a lot. And I went into some counseling, and pretty much what I was told by a counselor was, who's in charge of your moods? I thought, oh, well, the people I'm upset with. I don't, nobody's in charge of me but me. And I guess if it's that simple, I guess I can get started. I can try.
One of the things that came through, like what you're describing, is there really was sort of a kind of a victim mindset in that Craig kind of embodied. They tried to point it out to him, and then they eventually succeeded in a way because they said it to him in a way that would resonate with him about the whole stupid thing.
Yes. And then he began
And
to see some kind of stupidity in his own attitude. Like I'm my own worst enemy. I'm in my own way, even in the afterlife. I'm not crippled anymore, but I'm acting like I am. And, and then he said, I pushed against it and thought, maybe I can run. And then in the afterlife, he got up and ran and saw that he could do it. And then that opened up new possibilities for him, especially outdoors. Did you find that
Mhm.
part about the outdoors interesting?
Yeah, being able to, yes, yeah, yeah, it was interesting being able to run And yeah, and just making the choice to just do it. So there is this whole thing of changing your mind, not to be an unhappy person. I think sometimes people push back against that. Like, I can't just be miserable.
Well, I'm gonna quote from him. I have it in front of me. He said, "After my accident, I wasn't very kind and I wasn't very thoughtful." He said that about himself. That shows a lot of self-knowledge. The fact that my legs didn't work anymore, my suffering didn't make me more compassionate for anyone else's suffering. It just made me isolated. There were other options. If it does, now he's speaking to people on this podcast and saying, if it doesn't feel like you have other options, go ahead and note that, but then challenge it. Is it really true? Are there options I haven't seen yet because I'm not looking for them? Am I not open to the possibility that they even exist? Could I be different than I am?
Hmm.
This is our
Hmm.
man. This is Craig saying that about himself.
Hmm.
Then he says, if I'd gone on to live on the earth a long time in a healthy body, I don't mind. I still might have had the same attitude anyway. I might have had limiting beliefs, even with legs that worked. I might have formed ideas about what was and what could or couldn't be. I could be stubborn. I could form an idea and think that that idea is splendid because I thought it, and it's the only way anybody else ought to think because that's the way I think. I think I had that attitude about me that had nothing to do with having legs that didn't work.
Yeah,
Don't you love
yeah.
this guy?
Oh, yeah. No, he's a character. That's how I'd put it.
You remember when he talked,
Um,
he used the metaphor of dirt in the wound?
yes.
Do you ever use that in your practice? Do you ever use that idea with people?
I don't use that particular metaphor,
Hmm.
but I work on pointing out, like, are you aware of your own filter? I think we were talking about filters earlier. Are
Yeah.
you aware of how you're looking at something changes the way that you're experiencing the thing?
Yes.
It's almost not even the thing, it's how you're thinking about the thing
Yes.
that affects everything.
Yes. I remember
And so,
learning that phrase that things
yeah.
perceived as real are real in their consequences. You know, if you think that garden hose is a snake, you don't walk up to it and pick it up. You you jump back from it until you realize that I perceived it incorrectly. That's not a snake, that's a garden hose. You act according to the way you perceive things.
I don't think we talked about this before, but years and years ago, I had this sense that I was very, very anxious, and I had this sense that God must be very upset with me because I was anxious all the time. And then one day, I can remember I was working in finance in my past career, and I was like, wait a minute, would God actually do this? Would God actually cause me to be in some sort of anxiety? Because my experience of God my whole life has been that God is very loving, cares for us. And I don't think God would want to cause anxiety to come up in somebody.
But there was a
And
part of a
so,
thought in you that God is angry with you or upset with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought God was upset with me because of what was going on at the time. And then I realized, like, wait, I'm creating something up here that doesn't make sense given my whole life experience up until that time frame.
Did that insight come to you because of the help of a counselor or a confidant, or did it just arrive?
It actually, I think it just arrived. So you could say maybe my guardian angel, maybe, but it was almost it it just arrived.
Huh.
I can remember I was I was walking into the restroom at the office I worked at, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's not how God works. I'm creating some sort of drama in my own mind. It took a moment of looking at my own thinking,
Hmm.
my own anxious thinking, and going, oh no, no, this isn't God. This is not God. It's just so important to look at how your own brain is operating.
Yes.
and be aware of the filter that through which you're looking at the world.
Yes.
That might be a practice that perhaps on a daily basis, like what's the filter? How am I, especially if they're waking up in a melancholy mood, like, okay, how am I seeing the world right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if there are circumstances that are actually true, like my legs don't work, can I note that and have
Uh-huh.
the self-compassion that you talked about, and then say, all right, I've done that. Um, this is a difficult circumstance I'm in, and it's not changing. What do I
Yeah.
have the capacity to change? It's like the Serenity Prayer in the 12 steps. I might not
Mm-hmm.
be able to change this, but I might be able to change that. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
guardian said, there's nothing wrong with you now. You're as mobile as everybody else in the afterlife, but you need to change your temperament.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
didn't curse his guardian or tell him to shut up and go away and leave me alone or any such thing. He just stood there in the presence of truth. And when before we began this podcast, I said there's a lot of scriptural passages where Jesus will be in some argumentative conversation with someone, and then he'll say something, and after Jesus speaks, the text will say, and after that, no one had the nerve to ask him any more questions or the courage to ask him any more. He just said something true that had such a ring of truth to it that there was nothing more to be said. And that happened to Craig. His guardian just said, you're as mobile as the next person. What you have is an attitude problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he,
Mm-hmm.
and he received it as true and said, oh, you're right. I do have an attitude problem.
It got me thinking, for if there's other helping professionals listen to this podcast, there are times when it can feel maybe challenging to help someone move out of a less than helpful mindset. And it, I think we can look at the help on the other side as, in a way, inspirational because they didn't give up on him.
No.
And I think this can be the more complicated part. They found a way to use how he thinks about things as a way to get him to move
Yes.
mentally.
Yeah.
The whole stupidity thing.
Yes, and that was he didn't like stupidity in anybody else, and when he recognized that he was being stupid, he didn't like it in him any more than he did anybody else. Craig noted that while neither Charlie, oh, it's Charlie who's speaking, he said, neither Craig nor I were particularly religious men. But he said, I learned that you don't have to use religious categories necessarily to be a helper even from here. If anybody finds Craig or me to be people they'd like to know better, I think all they need to do is speak from their heart and we would hear them.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's
Yeah.
that's a very at home idea for me as the little Catholic boy that was trained to be surrounded by the angels and saints and souls that we're all in the body of Christ. It doesn't even have to be a Christian category necessarily, but we're all in the universe together and we can all help each other out. And Charlie pretty much said, if you think you're somebody that would like to know Craig or me any better, just say hello. Just speak from your heart and we'll hear you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important
Yeah.
point to remember. Um, yeah.
People who travel might know that when you travel, your hair dryer doesn't work. Uh, you I'm about to run out of power on my computer because it's not
Okay.
plugged into the right kind of power source. And right now, I need to go find the power source that connects in the Azores to my computer. I don't want this to just stop because we ran out of power. So we're at the end of our time. This has been me, Father Nathan Castle, and Kim Sharp talking to you about spiritual practice in the story of Craig and Charlie. So, thank you for being a part of this. If you'd like to
Yeah.
be in touch with either one of this, Kim, we can make sure that your contact info is in the show notes. Would
Okay.
that be okay with you?
That's fine. KimberlySharpMFT.com.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right. Well, that's easy. But for right now, that's it for this episode of the Joyful Friar podcast. If you'd like to be in touch with me, you can do that through my website, nathan-castle.com. if you're curious about this whole phenomenon of people coming in dreams and talking to them and all this stuff, please read one of my Afterlife Interrupted books before you want to have a conversation about that, because I don't want to have to repeat myself. There's some things that are in writing that are explained well. All those books are available on Amazon. Just type in my name, Nathan G. Castle, OP, and they pop up. All right. All right. Well, what fun this has been. Let's do it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope this has been really helpful to
All
people.
right. God bless you,
Yeah.
everybody. Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Joyful Friar. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can visit me at nathan-castle.com. Send me a message by clicking the contact button. God bless.
Have you ever had to do something so difficult that you had to deal with it in stages? Imagine dying suddenly with no forewarning, being in a car crash, a shooting, a drowning. You leave your body, but then what? How do you transition into the afterlife? For some, it flows all at once, but not for everybody. For some, the process of transitioning into the afterlife is interrupted. Maybe there's a need for rest or for learning, or maybe just the chance to adjust to such an abrupt experience. I'm Father Nathan Castle. I'm a Catholic priest. About 23 years ago, the Holy Spirit began to send me people who had died traumatically. They entered my dreams during sleep, showing me what had happened to them and asking for help. They had died and moved on, sort of, but they'd come to a moment where it was time to complete the crossing. With the help of the angels and saints and earthly prayer partners, we've assisted more than 300 souls as they complete their crossing. You can read about it in my book series. Afterlife Interrupted books are available on Amazon. You can also learn more by visiting my website, nathan-castle.com. God bless you.